And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, February 28th. We have a lot to cover on the show today, like we normally do, but before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, we're going to start off the show. We are going to talk about Aaron Rodgers once again. So I know we touched upon Matthew Stafford and some of the rumors surrounding him, more rumors, but I wanted to get into the Aaron Rodgers side of things. And the rumors that, if Matthew Stafford does indeed get traded, he would like to go play with the Rams and bring along Davante Adams. But I also wanted to get into that report as well that he supposedly reached out to the Giants to see if they were interested in signing him, because the Giants, of course, are another team that is looking for a quarterback. We talked about them yesterday and how, they want to acquire Matthew Stafford, supposedly. It's a main priority, according to what we're hearing out of the Combine. So we'll get into that. In the second part of the show, I wanted to talk about what Nestor Cortes Jr. had to say about the Dodgers and how he felt that the Yankees, even though they lost the World Series, were still the better team. So we'll get into exactly what he said. He's now a member of the Milwaukee Brewers, but I wanted to talk about that as well. Then in the third part of the show, we will get into talking about Kevin Durant. Whether or not the Suns may trade him after this season. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about in the fourth part of the show, Trey Smith of the Chiefs. He will likely be franchise tagged. So we'll take a look at who will likely be franchise tagged amongst the other teams as well in the NFL. And then the final part of the show, we have now moved on from the NFC East. We will continue our season overviews, and today we will be talking about the New Orleans Saints and what they have to do. And that's a team that needs a lot of work. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about Aaron Rodgers and more speculation on where he could possibly end up and where maybe he would like to play. So there are reports out there that he would like to go to the Rams. And if this does happen, he, of course, would want to bring along Davante Adams. Now, again, I'm going to say it for the millionth time. Matthew Stafford will be the starting quarterback for the Rams in 2025. Now, if that doesn't happen, you could clip what I just said and you could send it to Freezing Cold Takes. You could do whatever you want with it. But I still believe that that is what's going to end up happening. So that will be something that, leads to Rodgers having to look elsewhere. But I did say that once Stafford and the Rams figure out what they're going to do, then all the other dominoes will fall. That's how I feel. But I could be wrong on that. Now, going to the Rams would make sense for Rodgers because this is a team that came a couple of plays away, or were a couple of plays away from making it to the NFC Championship game. And had they got to the championship game, I think they would have went to the Super Bowl. Maybe they would have won it. That's just me. But that's how I feel. And you got Puka Nacua, who is turning into one of the best receivers in the league. You have Kyron Williams, who is a solid running back, a young running back. You got one of the best head coaches in the NFL in Sean McVay. And you got this young defense that really showed improvement as the year went along. And they won their division. So it makes sense Rodgers wants to go there. And to bring along Davante Adams, hey, you pair Davante Adams up with Puka Nacua, sign me up for that. That would be awesome to see. Now, I don't know how that would work financially because Davante Adams does, make a lot of money. But if they were able to bring aboard Davante Adams, with Puka Nacua, that would be pretty cool. But it just doesn't make sense from the Rams' perspective. Now, I understand it comes down to money, and Stafford wants to make the big bucks when comparing him to the other quarterbacks that are getting paid about $50 million. Now, some of the quarterbacks that are making $50 million don't deserve it. They haven't shown us anything. Matthew Stafford, he's got a Super Bowl ring. And again, the Rams, they came very close to getting to the championship game last year with him. So I get it. The problem with Stafford is his age. Like, if Matthew Stafford, if this was, 30-year-old Matthew Stafford, then I get it. But he's 37. He's nearing the end. So it's just a very strange situation what's going on there. But, when you going back to Rodgers, though, his overall numbers were not bad. But if you paid close attention to every Jet game, if you watched every Jet game, you know that numbers don't tell the whole story. There were points during the year where he was not good. And part of it was because he was injured. And he's also coming back from a major injury. And now he's a 40-year-old quarterback. But I think he did show you something towards the end of the year that he could still play. And it does have to be the right situation. This would be one of those situations. This would be a team that is looking to win a championship again. And it would make sense for him. But, going from Matthew Stafford to an even older quarterback, this is talking now from the Rams' perspective, doesn't really make sense. But who else are you going to bring in? Sam Darnold? Justin Fields? They supposedly are comfortable with starting Jimmy Garoppolo, which I think would be a mistake. That would be a downgrade. And I don't like that it seems like I'm bashing Jimmy Garoppolo, but it would be a downgrade. Garoppolo was not good with the Raiders. And I know it's different now. I mean, he's, with the Rams, obviously. But I don't know. I just feel it. And the other thing, too, is he's not durable. He gets hurt. So then, you go into next season with Jimmy Garoppolo, and he gets hurt. Then what? The other thing I'll say, too, is the offensive line for the Rams at times, was not great because it was hurt. If they were to bring in Aaron Rodgers, you need to make sure that offensive line can hold up. Because if not, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. That's the thing with these older quarterbacks. You need to be able to protect them. If not, it's really going to not work. It's not going to work out. Now, the other report out there is that Rodgers supposedly reached out to the Giants to see if they were interested. Now, does that make sense? I guess from the Giants' perspective, if you want to draft a young quarterback in the later rounds and you want to take a chance on Rodgers and try to compete, because this regime is desperate for wins, because if they don't get any wins, they're not going anywhere. They're going to end up being let go after the season. So if you go down that road and you brought in Rodgers, make sure you draft a young quarterback one way or another in this upcoming draft. Have them sit behind Rodgers, learn from him, and hope that a year that Rodgers plays for the Giants, he's able to teach that young quarterback, and then you could start in the following season. Ideally, that's what you would want, but who knows how it would turn out when it comes to with the Giants. And who knows? I mean, Rodgers could get hurt, something like that. But there was that report, but then there was another report. Now, Mike Florio reported that, but then there was a report, I think by USA Today, that was basically saying he didn't reach out to the Giants. So who knows? I'm just talking about, would it make sense? But if the Giants are trying to win now, you bring in Aaron Rodgers, I guess, and then you take the best player available at 3. You take a young quarterback with one of your other picks. You have them sit behind Rodgers. I mean, let's say they draft Travis Hunter. They draft Tetairoa McMillan. They draft another playmaker. Maybe Davante Adams comes on over. You got Tyrone Tracy coming out of the backfield. Maybe you take another running back in the later rounds. Andrew Thomas comes back next year. So you hope the offensive line is able to hold up. Because it was doing well in the beginning. It's just once Andrew Thomas got hurt, then everything fell apart. And then you have some good players on defense. So, with Aaron Rodgers, you could probably win more than 3 games, but where's that going to get you? Because look at the division. The division's going to be better. And, from Rodgers' perspective, I think the Giants could make sense just because he loves the New Jersey area. Talked about how he loved it. And you wouldn't have to move. You just go right across the hall. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But the Giants, it seems like they're focused on trying to get Matthew Stafford. And I think, look, I'm a Rodgers fan, but I think if you're trying to get a quarterback, I think Matthew Stafford would definitely be the better option. But that's just me. But let me know what you guys think about the Rodgers stuff. Where do you think he ends up playing? I mean, yeah, the Rams make sense if Stafford gets traded for him because, he's from California. He can go out there and, you bring Davante Adams. Got a good supporting cast, a really good head coach. Yeah, but I don't know. For the Rams, that would be kind of strange. You go from Matthew Stafford to Aaron Rodgers. But again, this is all speculation. But let me know what you guys think about all this. Where do you think Rodgers could end up? I really don't want to see him end up in Tennessee, but, or maybe the Colts. Listen, the Colts have been notorious for bringing in veteran quarterbacks, and supposedly they want to bring in competition for Anthony Richardson. Aaron Rodgers could be that competition, and that's a weak division. So we are going to take our first break, and then when we come back, we will talk about what Nestor Cortes Jr. said recently, saying that the Yankees, even with the Dodgers winning the World Series, were still the better team. So we will get into that conversation when we come back from our first break of the show. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we're back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're going to talk about Nestor Cortes and his comments on why he believes that the Yankees, even with them losing the World Series, he felt like they were still the better team than the Dodgers. And we'll talk about, if he's right or not. Now, I know some of you probably will be rolling your eyes because, well, this guy that's talking about it is a Yankee fan. So obviously he's going to agree with Nestor Cortes, right? No. Not necessarily. And I'll explain why. I'll explain why there's some validity to it, but not that much. So this is basically what he had to say. He was talking to the media, and he does have a habit of, talking when he shouldn't. He does a little bit too much chirping, I'll admit that, because he made some comments on the Yankees Red Sox rivalry in recent years. I forget when it was, but it was like a couple years ago, and I was just like, why are you saying that? Why are you adding fuel to the fire when you don't need to? I'll have to look it up, but basically he said we were the better team. He said at the moment they showed they were the better team, and he basically talked about how they made a lot of. Oh, this is the other quote. They can talk whatever they want to talk, but we win game 1, which we should have. We lost game 2 and 3. We win game 4, and we should have won game 5. Then we go back to LA up 3-2. So people can say it slipped away from us. People could say we made a lot of mistakes, which we did. But at the end of the day, we were the better team. I see it that way, and I'm sure everybody in that clubhouse sees it that way. The reality could have been going back to LA leading 3-2. And I get it. But I don't think it's wise for the player that gave up the game-winning grand slam to Freddie Freeman in game 1. I don't think it's wise for that player to speak on it. Now, I don't think Nestor Cortes should have ever been in the game. And I was, when the move first happened, when they put him in to face Freddie Freeman, well, actually, no, he didn't face Freddie Freeman. He was in before that because he pitched to Ohtani and he got Ohtani out. Well, Alex Verdugo made an incredible catch in foul territory to get the second out. And then they walked Mookie Betts, and then he faced Freddie Freeman, and first pitch, Freddie Freeman just takes it into the seats, sends it into the seats for the game winner. But it should not have gone that way. It should have been Tim Hill, which is the other lefty that the Yankees had in the bullpen. But for some reason, they elected to go with Nestor Cortes. Now, do I think that the Yankees were the better team? No. Now, where I think there's some validity to what Nestor is saying is the Yankees beat themselves in the World Series. They did. A lot of their flaws got exposed on the grand stage, which is lackadaisical defense, bad base running. Well, really the defense. The defense was the problem. And had they played fundamentally sound defense, this series goes back to LA. Now, I'm not saying that the Yankees would have won the World Series had they were able to send this series back to LA. They probably still end up losing. But at least it would have looked more respectable. And that 5th inning is going to haunt me for the rest of my life. That was my 2004. That was my 2004 because I wasn't watching baseball back then. So I never got to see it. But that was horrible. And I could tell I could tell after game 1, it felt different. It felt like, yeah, this might not be the Yankees' time. Because the Dodgers are really good. Now, I don't think the Dodgers played their best. I don't think they did. But I think they were the better team. I think the Yankees didn't do themselves justice because they played so poorly on defense at critical moments. But, you look at Shohei Ohtani. He ended up getting hurt, didn't have a big series. Mookie Betts didn't have a big series. Max Muncy. A lot of these guys, a lot of the key contributors really didn't do much. It was really just Freddie Freeman, who was unbelievable in the World Series and got World Series MVP, and rightfully so, with how he played. And Teoscar Hernandez. Those were the main guys on offense for the Dodgers. So it was there for the Yankees to win, but you can't make mistakes like that against the Dodgers, because the Dodgers are a team If you crack that door open, they're going to walk right through it. And that's what they did. They broke down that door. Fifth inning is a perfect example of that in Game 5. But the Dodgers were the better team. I knew this going in. I know there was definitely Yankee fans that felt, a little cocky going in, thinking that, oh yeah, we're going to win. I was hoping they were going to win, but I was definitely nervous going in. And that came to life throughout the series because the Dodgers just proved that they were the better team. The Yankees against the Guardians and the Royals, some of their blunders didn't cost them. They were able to win those series and move on, but against the Dodgers, they cost them. So, but I don't like how some of the Dodgers acted after the series. Some of them just bashed the Yankees. And some people are going to say, well, who cares? There's a lot of people that don't like the Yankees, which I understand. But you got Joe Kelly, who didn't play at all, saying things like, oh, this was just a mismatch from the get-go. And he ranked them as the 8th or 9th best playoff team. So a team that went to the World Series, you're not only like you're not putting them 3rd or 4th, you're not even putting them in the top 5. You're putting them at 8 or 9? A team that made it to the World Series. It makes no sense. But that's what he decided to do. And I apologize for camera issues once again. But that's just, that's just what happens. Yeah, it's not right. Now, it's kind of the fan in me saying that. But, I mean, come on. Do we, honestly, to be objective, you really think that the Yankees were the 8th or 9th best playoff team? Really? There's no way. But that's how Joe Kelly feels. But, listen, Joe Kelly should just be happy that he has a Super Bowl. So used to talking about football. Joe Kelly should be happy that he has a World Series championship. So, yeah, it's just I don't think Nestor Cortes should be saying anything. I get where he's coming from, and of course, what do you want him to say? What do you want him to say? Of course he's going to say that. But it's just when I hear him say that, I'm like, dude, let's just let it go. But the media asked him a question. He answered it honestly. So, man, the camera's really not helping me out today. I don't know why. I just don't get it. But let me know what you guys think, though, about what Nestor had to say. Do you agree with him? No. I really don't agree with him. I think there's, like I said, I think there's some validity to it just because, like I said, I think the Yankees beat themselves in the World Series in a lot of ways. But I don't think they were the better team going in. The Dodgers were the better team, and they're going to be even better this year. So, we'll see what happens with that. But that's just my opinion. Man, the camera just does not want to work. I don't know what's going on with my camera, guys. I apologize for that. But yeah, like I said, let me know what you guys think though about what Nestor had to say. Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk a little bit about Kevin Durant. Some comments that Brian Windhorst had to make on Kevin Durant and how after the season the Suns could look to maybe trading him. I know that they attempted to do that at the trade deadline, but that of course did not end up working out for them. So we will get into that conversation. My camera finally decided to work. So we will get into that conversation and if that would be beneficial for them or not. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to talk about Kevin Durant and the likelihood of him being traded after this season. So Brian Windhorst, NBA insider on ESPN, he talked about the chances that Durant could be traded after the year. And he said they're going to trade KD, and he knows that. He said they're going to trade him, and he knows that. There's been a couple of opportunities where he could have criticized him, there's a couple of opportunities where he could have criticized them for trying to trade him. He has not done that. He's been very professional about this, and I expect that to continue throughout the rest of the season. He's going to try and win every game. He's out there, and then in the offseason, he sort of gave himself a little ad there. He's like, whatever team gets me, I'm going to make a difference. I'm still in my prime. I think he's handled this very appropriately. Now, going back to the trade deadline, the Warriors tried to acquire him, and he declined that trade. And then the Warriors pivoted, and they went and they got Jimmy Butler. But he wanted to see this through with the Suns. He wanted to finish this year with the Suns, try to make the playoffs, and, see what happens. But right now, and especially with what happened last night, because they lost again, and they're now, I think they're 27-32 on the season. Yeah, they're 27-32. They lost to the Pelicans, who have 16 wins now on the season. The Pelicans have been a major disappointment too. The Suns in their last 10 games, if you don't know this, you probably do, they are 2-8 in their last 10 games. And do you want to know who those two wins came against? They came against the Bulls and the Jazz. That's it. And those aren't good teams. And right now, when you look at the big picture, they're 3.5 games back of a play-in spot behind the Kings. Right now, this team does not look like they're making the playoffs. I wanted to get back to what Brian Windhorst was saying. So he also said, and look, I know that the Warriors wanted Durant. It didn't work out. I didn't want to be there. The Warriors are doing great too. They're doing just fine. KD is setting himself up for his last act. I think everybody's intentions are crystal clear. So he really feels like Durant is going to get traded. And if he does, I mean, what a disappointment. The Suns gave up a lot to get him They traded, like 4 players? They traded 4 first-round picks, and then I think there was another pick involved in it too to get Durant. And then you went and you got Bradley Beal, and you gave up a lot to get him, and it just hasn't worked out. It has not worked out. They got swept last year by the Timberwolves, right? Got knocked out by them. I think the year before that, they lost to Denver in the playoffs. And now it just looks like they're not even going to make the playoffs. So yeah, so they were 4th in the Western Conference a couple years ago. And yeah, they lost actually no, they lost to the Clippers. Denver was the oh wait, no. No, they beat the Clippers. No, they did lose to the Nuggets. They lost to the Nuggets, and then last year they got swept by the Timberwolves. But yeah, it's been like a slow decline for them. So they lost the NBA Finals to the Bucks. Then they lost in the semifinals, back-to-back years. Then they lost in the first round. Now they're not even going to make the playoffs. And when they lost in the semifinals, the year after losing the finals, they were 64-18. Now that was without Durant, but and we saw this with the Nets too. You gave up a lot to get these players to come over. Well, Durant they ended up bringing in, they signed him. They signed him and they signed Kyrie. But they went out and they got Harden and they thought, all right, we got this big 3. Let's see how many championships we can win. And they didn't win a single one. And all 3 of them barely played together. And now Harden, he just continues to bounce around. He went to the Sixers, and now he's on the Clippers. It's amazing how many times these players switch teams. And Durant's going to end up going to his, what is it now? This is going to be his 5th team if he leaves the Suns. Unless he ends up going back to OKC, which I made a joke about that. But who knows? And he makes a lot of money. Now, I do think you're still getting a very good player. Durant could still play. It's just everywhere he goes, it's just there's always drama. There's always drama. And then he ends up wanting out. Right now on the season, Durant's having a good year. He's played in 46 games. He's averaging 26.9 points per game, 6.1 rebounds, 4.2 assists. He's 36 already, which, he's nearing the end too, but he's still playing very well. But it's just, when is it going to end with these players? But like I said, whoever ends up getting him is going to get a very good player. But you don't want to give up a ton. Because then you end up being like the Suns and you give up a lot of these players and, you have this big 3 with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, but, the supporting cast is, kind of been an issue. And Bradley Beal's been a disappointment because he was coming off the bench this year. And it's just, right now, the way this season's going for the Suns, I'd be surprised if they end up making it into the play-in. I mean, they really got to get it going. But, it's also, they could trade Durant. I don't think they should trade Devin Booker. I saw that's also a possibility. I don't think they should do that. I think you keep him because that's the cornerstone of your franchise. He's been there for so long. Why are you going to trade him? Durant you could trade. Because Durant's older and, try to get something back for him. But it's just amazing, from the Nets to the Suns. I mean, these teams had bright futures. And they traded that all away because they were like, hey, we could get this superstar and we could try to win now. And it just ended up not panning out. And now, the Suns, they're going to be in rebuild mode. Look at the Nets. They're still trying to figure it out. And I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. But, I mean, if the Suns were trying to trade him mid-season, they're going to try to trade him at the end of the year. And Durant's going to probably have a say on where he wants to go. Because, if that trade to the Warriors wasn't made known to him, then, who knows? But he's going to want to go elsewhere. He wants to finish on his terms. And we'll see what that team ends up being. I was looking at the possible destinations. I saw the Rockets could be a team. The Thunder I really think would be interesting, but I don't know. Would they want to do that? I mean, he could be the missing piece depending on what they do this year. I mean, if they win the finals, then, I wouldn't consider that. But let's say they have another early round exit. Sorry, holding back a sneeze. Apologize. And it happens at least once. We've been good lately, but it's just this one. We're good though. Anthony's saying Dallas in the chat. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that. Look at what they just did with Luka. They got Anthony Davis, you got Kyrie, you got Klay Thompson. I don't think Dallas is trading for Kevin Durant. I don't think it's going to happen. So you trade away Luka and then you bring in Durant. So now you got all these guys that, well, not to say that they're washed, but it's becoming an older team. Klay Thompson's not the same player, although, the other night against the Lakers, he looked like vintage Klay with, the few threes that he hit in a row. And Kyrie could still ball. Anthony Davis constantly gets hurt. And then you got Durant. So what? Then it would become the Nets 2.0 with Kyrie and Kevin Durant. I'm not doing that. But I think it's really it has to be a team that Durant is the missing piece to. Like, Durant can't be the guy. He's got to be a complementary piece to an extent. Because, he's on the older side. He doesn't have that ability to single-handedly carry a team like he used to. And it's just because it's an age factor. But he can still play. You just need to have that supporting cast around him. And, we'll see what ends up happening. It's going to be something to keep an eye on in the offseason. But, yeah, I mean, his days are numbered in Phoenix. That's what it looks like right now. Anthony's also saying Milwaukee. I mean, I'd unless they did like, a Giannis Kevin Durant swap, which again really wouldn't make sense to me because who knows how long Giannis is going to stay in Milwaukee. Yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be interesting how it plays out. But let me know what you guys think. Where do you think Durant could potentially end up? Let me know in the comments. We did talk about the Warriors briefly, but I guess we'll take a look at the NBA scores from last night. So the Warriors won again. They won again. They beat the Magic. And Steph Curry had 56 points last night. He went off. And the Warriors just continue to win. Jimmy Butler only had 5 points. Last couple games he really hasn't really done much. He had 6 points the other night against the Hornets. And then he only had 5 against the Magic. But Steph Curry, 16 of 25 shooting, 12 of 19 from 3. Warriors are playing some good basketball right now. They're now 7th in the Western Conference. And they're only a half game behind the Clippers. So if they get past them, they will not be a playing team. And the way they're playing, they're 7-3 in their last 10 games. They've won 5 in a row. They keep playing like this, they could slowly work themselves up the standings here in the last month or so. Dallas won last night. Kyrie Irving, 25 points. Klay Thompson, 18 points. I want to see this team get healthy. If they can get the rest of their guys back, including Anthony Davis, let's see what this team can do post-Luka. It's going to be interesting. Lakers won again, 111-102. Speaking of Luka, he had 21 points last night, went 6 of 20 from the field, 1 of 9 from 3. Austin Reeves had 23 points, 33 points from LeBron. Jackson Hayes had 10 points. Once again, another night where 4 out of the 5 starters for the Lakers had double-digit points. So, and I believe Anthony Edwards also got thrown out of the game. My friend was saying. I did not watch the game last night. Oh, yeah, so Anthony Davis was ejected with 5:27 remaining in the third quarter after picking up his second technical foul. He threw the ball into the stands after being ejected. And if both technical fouls are upheld, he will be suspended 1 game for picking up 16 technicals this season. No, so that's not good. Not a good look. But the Lakers get the win, and they are right now the 4th seed in the Western Conference. And they're only a game behind Denver and a game and a half behind Memphis. So we've talked about this. Those 2 and 3 seeds, they're up for grabs. The Lakers could definitely pass those teams because the Nuggets lost last night. They lost to the Bucks 121-112. 4 out of their 5 starters all had double-digit points. Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and Christian Vaughn. But the Bucks had all 5 of their starters scoring the double digits. Giannis had 28, Brook Lopez 22, Kyle Kuzma had 16, Damian Lillard 19, and Taurean Prince had 10. So Bucks get the win. And then we talked about, of course, the Suns losing to the Pelicans. And we got some NBA action tonight. A lot of teams playing. Lakers-Clippers play tonight. You got the Pistons taking on the Nuggets. So we'll see if that winning streak can continue. And then you also have, the top 2 teams in the Eastern Conference going at it. The Cavaliers and the Celtics. And the Knicks play the Grizzlies. So some good games tonight. We'll see what happens there as we move along here. But we're going to take our next break now. And then when we come back, we will talk about the franchise tag. Trey Smith received the franchise tag of the Kansas City Chiefs, and we'll talk about who else could potentially get the franchise tag. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the 4th part of the show, we're going to now talk about the Chiefs franchise or likely franchise tagging Trey Smith, as well as taking a look at who else could be franchise tagged. Now, I did want to address what Anthony said. He said, I think this is just an aberration. This is still on basketball. I think this is just an aberration to me with the Warriors. I think they're going to end up missing the playoffs. Now, when you say that, do you mean that they're going to miss the playoffs entirely, like not even the play-in, or you just think they're going to be a play-in team and get knocked out? I don't know. I mean, they're playing really well, and they're in striking distance of passing, the Clippers. So they could do that, they'll be in, and they're going to be a dangerous team if they get in. So back to football, though. So the Chiefs are planning to franchise tag their offensive guard, Trey Smith. And he was going to be one of the top free agents this upcoming offseason here. And it's going to be worth up to $23.4 million. And that actually would surpass Landon Dickerson of the Eagles, his $21 million per year contract. And they have until July to work out a long-term deal. Otherwise, Smith is going to play under the tag in 2025. Now, Brett Veach, speaking with the media, said he's optimistic that they could reach a long-term deal. And we'll see if they deliver on that. But offensive line is going to be something the Chiefs are going to have to address. Now, it'll be better knowing that, you slide Joe Thuney back to his natural position. And then you got Trey Smith, you got Creed Humphrey. What the Chiefs really have to work on is the tackles. The tackles were a major problem. I mean, the offensive line was a problem in general in the Super Bowl, but the tackles is what they have to fix. And we'll see how they do that. But Trey Smith, T. Higgins, those are the two candidates, or those are the two guys that are likely going to get the franchise tag. Other than that, though, it doesn't seem like the franchise tag is going to be used by a lot of teams. It seems like there's going to be very few teams using the franchise tag this time around. Because, I just was like, oh, well, what are the Vikings planning on doing? All signs really point to them letting Sam Darnold test free agency. They are not going to give Sam Darnold the franchise tag. And you know what? I don't disagree with them. I don't. I think that's the right move. Let him go out, test the market, see what he gets. And, if a team offers him a contract that, the Vikings don't think he's worth, then let him go. Let him go. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think Sam Darnold is worth the price that he could get. Because he had a very good season. And I give him a lot of credit for it. But he had a very good season because of where he was. If he ends up going to a team, like if he goes to the Raiders or he goes back to New York and plays for the Giants, which I don't think is going to happen, but if he goes there, he is not going to have the same year. And you saw how he looked the final two games that he played for the Vikings. That is probably what has scared off a lot of teams. You don't want that. And like I said, I don't blame the Vikings for not franchise tagging him. But the Vikings are just in a weird spot because do you bring him back and, let J.J. McCarthy sit? Like, are they going to go into the year with J.J. McCarthy as the quarterback? I guess they could. They could do that. Or do they want him to continue to sit? It's odd, but hey, they let Kirk Cousins walk. But different circumstances, because he was hurt. I think had Kirk Cousins not gotten hurt, I think maybe, the Vikings and him, they would have figured it out. Maybe. But that's just me. So, yeah, it doesn't look like Darnold is going to get the franchise tag. Looking at some of the other potential candidates, Javon Holland of the Dolphins, maybe, but it doesn't seem like the Dolphins are going to use it on him. DJ Reed of the Jets, doesn't seem like they're going to use it on him. There's not really that many guys you look at. Now, the Cowboys, Osa Odigizua, defensive tackle, could be a guy they potentially use it for, but maybe not. The Texans don't really have anybody. The Colts, a lot of their guys that, could have been free agents, they ended up, re-signing. The Jaguars don't have anybody. Yeah, doesn't really seem like there's going to be that many. So, the Giants, their top free agent is Darius Slayton, but they're not going to use a franchise tag on him. Actually, the Eagles, that's who I wanted to talk about. The Eagles could be a team that maybe uses it because you got Zach Bond, you got Josh Sweat, and Milton Williams. I don't think they're using it on Milton Williams. I think you're either going to use it on, if they were to use it, it's either going to be on Zach Bond or Josh Sweat. Because Zach Bond, under the radar signing, ended up having a great year. I don't think the Eagles are going to want to lose him. And when we were going over, their free agents, some of their free agents are their linebackers. So, you don't want to lose all of them. I don't think you want to lose him. He had a pick in the Super Bowl, played really well all year. You don't want to lose him. Josh Sweat, one of your edge rushers. We'll see what they end up doing. But maybe they don't franchise tag anybody. I could definitely see them doing that, though. We're looking at some of the other teams here. Yeah, it just doesn't seem like anybody is going to use. Not that many teams are going to use it. So right now, like I said, the teams that are definitely using it, it's going to be the Bengals, and it's going to be the Chiefs. And then we'll see who else decides to jump in and use it. The deadline is coming up. So we will see if there's any last-second decisions there when it comes to the franchise tag. And also, if you hadn't heard, and I know we talked about this earlier in the week, but Travis Kelce is definitely coming back. It was made official. So, it was made officially official. So they will have him back for his 13th season. But yeah, no, we're in the final day of February. We get to March, and the new league year is going to start. Baseball season is going to start. March Madness. March is going to be an exciting time. March is going to be an exciting time, and then you get to the the home stretch of the NBA regular season as their season winds down. Stanley Cup playoffs. There's a lot coming up. There's a lot coming up. But yeah, no, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. But let me know what you guys think, though. Who else could potentially get franchise tagged? Yeah, this seems like one of those years where nobody's going to get it. Not really that much. Unless I'm wrong, and then all of a sudden you have so many players end up getting it. But it doesn't seem like there's that many. I think the two teams that are likely using it, I think the players that they're using it on, it's important. For the Bengals, I think they do have to keep T. Higgins. They got to find a way to keep him and Jamar Chase, keep them all together, because that's a very good trio with them two and Joe Burrow. And Jamar Chase benefits from having T. Higgins on the team. And there's a lot of unknowns outside of those two guys with the receiving core. I know Yoshi Voss, he was pretty good at times for them last year. The rookie Jermaine Burton only had 4 catches and some off-the-field issues. So who knows if he's even going to be a factor. They're also going to try to bring back Mike Gesicki, because I think he's a free agent. But he was good for them at times. Chase Brown, the second year back, he took a step forward this year. I think they'll probably add another running back, but we'll see. But yeah, no, T. Higgins, if the Bengals can keep him, that would be very good for them. And then for the Chiefs, even if they were to lose Trey Smith, now you got to remember also, they franchise tagged L'Jarius Sneed and then they ended up trading him. So who's to say they don't do that with Trey Smith? But, keeping him around and making sure that he doesn't leave, and if he were to leave, it's on the Chiefs' terms, they end up trading him. That's good because, you can get something back for him. But yeah, the offensive line, like we said, that is something that needs to be addressed by the Chiefs. And they did a great job a few years ago doing that after, they got shredded in the Super Bowl by the Bucs. Same thing applies here after, playing against the Eagles. So, we'll see what other moves they make. And, between free agency and the draft, we'll find out. So, when we come back from our final break of the show, we are going to continue our season overviews. And today we will be talking about the New Orleans Saints. So, we got through every team in the NFC East, and now we are moving on to the NFC South. So, we will be talking about the Saints when we come back. So, for one final time today, make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the final part of the show, we are going to do a season overview of the New Orleans Saints. I did want to address, since we're talking about football, Anthony's earlier comment about Matthew Stafford. He said, do you think in order for the Rams to trade Matthew Stafford, they might have to eat some of his contract because doesn't Matt want to be playing for a playoff team, not a rebuilding team? Yeah, I mean, I guess the Rams would have to eat some of the contract. But he has to be traded first, and we got to wait and see on that. I still think he's going to stay with the Rams. They're going to work things out, but who knows at this point. But let's get into the Saints. So the Saints were interesting, right? You go back to the first 2 weeks of the season. They blew out the Panthers. They put up 40 points. And then we thought this was a shocking win for them at the time when they went into Dallas and they put up 40 points against the Cowboys. So they won 47-10 the first game, 44-19 the second game. And we were like, wow, could the Saints actually be legit this year? Another comment in the chat, are there in the United States football and basketball ultra egos like in Europe? Ultras organizations are crazy fans and hooligans. Okay. I mean, yeah. I mean, did you see what the Eagles fans did to the city after they won the Super Bowl? That's what you mean? We got some very passionate fans over in the States, if that's what you're talking about. But anyways, back to the Saints. So actually, after their first two wins, then they played the Eagles at home, and they lose that game 15-12. Dallas Goedert, that 3rd and 16, nobody's covering him. He runs across the middle and down the sideline, and the Eagles, they didn't score until the fourth quarter. They scored all 15 of their points in the fourth quarter. Saquon Barkley had that long run that put them up 7-3. And you know what, the Eagles, they went for it on fourth down, a decent amount of times. What did they end up finishing? On fourth down, the Eagles went 1 of 3 on fourth down. But they had 460 yards of total offense against the Saints. So that could have easily have been a blowout had the Eagles had their whole supporting cast, because they were also missing A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith got hurt in the game. So, yeah. And then after that, they proceeded to lose. After they started off 2-0, they lose to the Eagles, including the Eagles' loss. They proceeded to lose their next 7 games. They lost to the Falcons. They lost to the Chiefs. Got blown out by the Buccaneers. Blown out by the Broncos. Lose to the Chargers. And then Derek Carr came back. So that was the other thing, too. Derek Carr ended up getting hurt. He got hurt in the Chiefs game. Missed some time. Spencer Rattler came in, and he really wasn't that great. You know, especially in that Packers game. They lost 34-0, the Saints. But that's also because they literally had nobody. They had no Kamara. They had no... That's the thing. Injuries really played a role in derailing the Saints season, in my opinion. Because Carr ends up getting hurt. You had Rashid Shaheed end up getting hurt, and he got off to a great start. Chris Olave ends up getting hurt with the concussions. Alvin Kamara missed some time. The offensive line, I think guys got hurt. Everywhere you look, guys got hurt. And then they ended up letting go of Dennis Allen. You had Darren Rizzi come in and as the interim coach. And, you know, they ended up winning 2 in a row with him as the head coach. He finished 3-5 on the year as the interim head coach. And the Saints, at times, they did play better. You know, they lost some close games. I mean, towards the end, they got blown out by the Packers, 34-0. They lost by 2 scores against the Raiders. Almost upset the Buccaneers and maybe potentially knocked them out of the playoffs, but Falcons still ended up losing, so the Bucs would have made it in regardless. But yeah, it was not a good year. They finished 5-12. Derek Carr, he had 15 touchdowns to 5 picks, 2,100 yards passing. Spencer Rattler, he had 1,300 yards passing, 4 touchdowns to 5 picks. Jake Hayner also played a little bit as well. Taysom Hill, another guy that got hurt. You know, he had that big 3-touchdown game against the Browns, and then, you know, he ended up tearing his ACL, so who knows what his future is going to look like. But, yeah, no, the Saints, they had me, and then they didn't. Because I did jump the gun a little bit, because I was like, wow, you know, the Saints did 40 points a game. I mean, look at this. I know it was against the Panthers, but still, I mean, the way they were looking last year, you're like, hey, they finished 9-8. Maybe the momentum from the end of last year carried into this year. But yeah, injuries played a role, and also Dennis Allen. I just didn't think he was a good coach. But they have an older team, and you know their cap situation continues to be one of the worst in the league. I think they're like $50 million over the cap, so they got some work to do. And honestly, I think they really need to lean into the full rebuild. You know, it seems like Derek Carr is going to be back, and, you know, they still got Kamara. Now Kellen Moore is going to be the next head coach. And, you know, I hope he does well, you know, and tries to turn things around. But they're going to have to give him time because this roster needs a lot of work. And there's some older players on the defensive side of the ball, like Cameron Jordan and Demario Davis. Those guys, I don't know. I think they're going to have to, you know, trade some people away. Because they traded Marshawn Lattimore away. I think you need to just tear it down, start over. I think that's what they're going to have to do. Also in the chat, in Europe, fans are crazier during the game. Yeah, no, you're right. He's throwing smoke flares, firecrackers, burning chairs, and fights on the field. Yeah, I would not. I would say, you know, when you put it that way, you know, the atmosphere over there is a lot different than what it's like over in the States. But, you know, again, that's just me. But hey, listen, you know, the NFL is, you know, going to continue with their international games. I think there's a game in Australia, I think, right? You know, you got the Brazil game, the Germany game, the London game. You know, they're really expanding. So, you know, make sure to go check those games out if you're in the area. But back to the Saints, though, and I think actually they're one of the teams that is hosting an international game. Might be wrong. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I've said that several times already, but I'm going to keep on saying it. I think the Saints really need to lean into tearing this roster down. I mean, I obviously keep some of the young players that you have, but I really do think, like, on defense, the defense needs to be overhauled. They were not great last year. This Saints team has really taken a nosedive since Drew Brees and Sean Payton left. And it's okay. It happens. But I do think, I know there's some rumors that they could trade Olave. Well, first of all, we got to see if Olave comes back, which I think he should be. But concussions were a problem for him last year. So hopefully he comes back. Rashid Shaheed comes back. So you get your top two weapons back. You had guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, making plays for them. And he actually did well for them. He helped my mom defeat me in one of my fantasy matchups. So maybe you bring him back. To pair up with Shaheed and Olave, even though, he'd probably have to be like the, fourth receiver or something. But who knows? The Saints, though, they have, looking at their draft selections, so they have the 9th pick. They got a couple of picks from Washington. So they have 8 total picks. So they really need to nail these picks in the draft. I don't think they're going to be doing too much in free agency. But they're going to need to nail these picks. They could go defense. Maybe you take a corner to replace Marshawn Lattimore. Maybe you take an offensive lineman. Maybe you take a linebacker, defensive lineman. Maybe they take a receiver in one of the later rounds or something. Tight end could be a possibility. Maybe they take the tight end from Penn State. Maybe they do that. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done with this roster. Yeah, that's what I said. That's who I was alluding to, Tyler Warren or McMillan. But I don't know. It could be one of those things where they just take best player available. Anthony also said, can the Saints even trade the contract for Derek Carr, or of Derek Carr? Who's going to take it? Maybe the Giants. Maybe if the Giants still get Stafford, they pivot and they try to get Derek Carr. I mean, as of right now, the Saints are saying, oh, yeah, we're excited to work with Derek Carr, but who knows if that happens. So, but yeah, there's a lot of work that the Saints got to do. There's a lot of work that Kellen Moore and this team has to do to get themselves, back into competing, because the division's better. You saw how the Panthers finished off the year last year. You saw how Bryce Young was playing. The Buccaneers, the Falcons, the Saints right now are the worst team. And I had them finishing in, what did I have them finish? Well, I had them finishing around the same record as the Bucs, but that did not happen. I mean, I think had the Saints not got banged up, they probably win some more games, but it is what it is. But that is pretty much it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Appreciate the comments, Anthony, as always. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and to the videos as well. And yeah, until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, enjoy the weekend, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet.